first governance meeting of this council year. Oh, sound a little tinny there. And to welcome you all, first of all, we have a couple of housekeeping points to raise. Please, could you note the location of the fire exits? Those of you who are in the room, there are no scheduled fire alarms tonight, so if we hear one, it's the real thing, so proceed orderly to the nearest exit safely. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, so councillors, please reflect that in your demeanour and your behaviour, particularly since this is my first meeting as chairman. And welcome to those committee members who are new to the committee this year. Thank you very much. And very briefly, a thanks to those who served previously, Councillor Croker, Vickers, and our previous chair, Councillor Walters, for their hard work. So, onwards. Apologies for absence. We've received apologies for absence from Councillor Jill Perry. We do not appear to have Councillor Claudia Fisher here, but hopefully she might appear or hear something. Okay. So, on to agenda item 2, the minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of April be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder for this? Who was, I'm looking to those councillors who were here present. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Did anybody wish to comment on the accuracy of the minutes? No? Okay, so are we all agreed that I may sign the minutes as a correct record? Agreed. Lovely, thank you very much. So, item 3, to receive any declarations of interest from members. Does any member have an interest to declare in respect of any item on tonight's agenda? Okay, Councillor Emery, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to declare an interest as part of my ward is contained within the unparished area. So part of the ward of Holbrook West is within the area under review.
So noted. Thank you, Councillor.
Similarly, Chairman, the entirety of my ward, Trafalgar Ward, is in the unparished area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that that's useful to clarify for people watching, although I don't believe it in any way prevents you from taking a full part in this evening's debate. So, moving on. Item number 4, announcements. I'm pleased to say that there are no announcements. So we can proceed to item number 5. Horsham Town Community Governance Review Draft Recommendations. And we're joined tonight by Aisha Nottage, the Democratic Services and Election Manager, who will now introduce this report.
Thank you. As members of the committee will be aware, a consultation took place in May and June regarding the creation of a town council in the unparished area of Horsham Town. Over 1,600 responses were received, of which 75.5% were in favour of creating a town council. The detailed analysis of the responses to the online consultation are contained in Appendix 3, which includes perceived benefits as well as concerns that respondents had and areas they felt they required more information on. These requests have been incorporated into the leaflet where possible, and detailed responses are on the Community Governance Review webpage. A number of responses were received from elected representatives, as well as 2 written responses from residents, which are contained within the appendices to this report. Following the consultation, draft recommendations have been produced, which are contained in Appendix 1. The draft recommendations outline the principles that were considered when producing the recommendations, and the proposed wards are contained in the document, as well as the maps relating to these proposed wards. Please note, however, that the table refers to a ward called Foundry, whilst the map refers to Kingsley. The proposal is that this ward is called Kingsley, and it will be updated in the published draft recommendations. Further to this, there's a reference to the elector ratio in the tables for the Den ward on pages 11 and 18, which should read 1688 rather than 1450.5. Again, this will be updated. The proposed wards have been developed based on the community identity and cohesion within the unparished area, as well as having consideration to the district ward and county division boundaries as much as possible. The town has historically not had coterminous boundaries in relation to the neighbourhood councils, district wards and county divisions. When the Local Government Boundary Commission for England conducts reviews of the district and county boundaries, they cannot divide parish wards with the boundaries that they propose. If their proposals do cut through an existing parish ward or parish, they have to create new parish wards to accommodate their changes. As such, the proposals have taken into account the county divisions as far as possible to reduce future changes to parish wards that may not align with the communities in the town. The next stage of consultation commences on the 14th of August, and the proposed leaflet and questionnaire are included at appendices 5 and 6. The same arrangements will be in place as used at the previous consultation, whereby leaflets are hand-delivered. Paper copies of the questionnaire will be available at the council offices and posted out on request. Promotion of the consultation will take place on social media and on banners and posters in the town. A suggestion has also been made by the Chair of Den Neighbourhood Council to make it clear on the leaflet that this is a second stage consultation that residents can get involved in, and that's being looked into. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Horsham. So before we move to the debate, in light of those corrective amendments that Aisha has noted that are required to these draft recommendations, I'd like to propose that recommendation 5 is altered to allow these amendments to be made. The recommendation would therefore read, to delegate authority to the Democratic Services and Elections Manager to amend the consultation documents and draft recommendations as deemed appropriate to reflect any comments made by members of the Governance Committee or otherwise. Do I have a second? Thank you very much, Councillor Jeffrey. Is the committee in agreement to proceed on that basis? Thank you very much. So, does any member wish to comment or ask questions? It's opened up to debate for you. Councillor Boffey.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm not sure whether there will be others following me, but I thought I would just start out by thanking Aisha and officers for the work done in conducting this the review thus far to this stage, and also for all those many residents and interested groups, both inside the unparished area and outside, who have an interest in the area, for taking part in the consultation thus far. I think from reading through the individual comments that have come through, there's an awful lot of points raised there, and obviously people have taken a keen interest in this. There are some themes that emerge in there. Obviously, we've noted that there are some areas where residents would like more information, and there are it was worth noting some of the points regarding, why does this conducted just for the unparished area rather than adjacent parishes as well? And I think the simple reason for that is that is what we're required to do. That was the scope of this review, in the nature that as it was requested of us by the Blueprint Neighbourhood Forum, and deviating from that was not an option that was available to us. However, residents can rest assured that it is in the council's plan to, or in our plans to conduct a district-wide community governance review in the next civic year, which can be taken in any findings of which can be taken into account in our parish elections in 2027. So it's not excluded as a result of the work that's been done thus far, but the work that's been done has been in accordance with what's required of us as a local authority. It seems to me that we've had a fairly good level of engagement with this process, and there's a fairly strong sentiment reported here in favour of the moving forward with the town council, but obviously I'll be interested to see what other members have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boffey. If no other member is... Councillor Clark, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I have a number of comments to make. because I'm not desperately happy with the proposal as tabled. And in particular, my comments take place in the context of Articles 3.13, 3.24, and 3.25 of the text. The present arrangements of the neighbourhood councils have 31 members, and what is proposed is 15 members, which of course is a sharp reduction in the number of councillors, fine. However, if I look at the tables in page 23, 24 and 30, 31, if I look at the wards as proportioned and the suggestion, basically, I've just numbered the wards, to be honest, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm not bothered with the names. But if you look at the proportion of votes per representative, if I can put it that way, there is a huge disparity between the different options that you have, where it varies from 1,769 votes for one councillor down to 888 votes for one councillor, which is a huge disparity. And I don't think that's right. Particularly, it's not legislation that all the wards have to be treated equally so that you have the same number of votes per councillor. But I think the problem here resides in 15. So I went and tinkered with the numbers, as I normally do. And if you had 21 councillors, or possibly 22, which legislation authorises you to do, according to the Parish Council Act of 1957, Part 3, miscellaneous, just to be clear. If you tinker with the numbers, you can get them down to a range of something like 753 to about 1,100. So you get a narrower range so that one person's vote counts, how can I put this, counts nearly the same as somebody else's vote, if you see what I'm trying to say. So if I look at the draft recommendation on page 3031, for example, you had 3 for the first one. Well, I said if you had 4, you'd bring it down from 1424 to 1068. If you had the second one was 1 and you did it 2, that's 844. So if you make minor changes to the number of councillors and you end up with about 21, 22, you have, in my view, a more equitable spread of the votes. So you don't have something like one councillor is 888 votes and another councillor is 1,900 votes. And I think that's something we ought to think about, that's all. So sorry to go into so much detail, but I have actually thought about it.
No, that's very welcome. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Did the officer wish to comment at all on that suggestion before any other members wish to continue the debate?
So just to clarify, that wouldn't be changing any of the boundaries. So your minimum would still be the Holbrook, the bit of Holbrook West, which is Mill Pond with one councillor.
No, I didn't tinker with the boundaries. I just tinkered with the numbers and said basically it's more equitable if you have a larger number of councillors, which is obvious, I suppose. But because of the makeup or the way this is cut up, if I can put it that way, it's more equitable to do it with a higher number, and nothing prevents us doing that. It's just, it seems to me that we have a hang up with maybe 15 maximum, whereas I said 20, 21 or 22 might yield a better overall package for the electorate as a suggestion. And I can give you my numbers if you want.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Are there any other members who wish to comment? Councillor Boffey, first, thank you.
It's just a question around that, really, and around process here, because I take the point. And there is the assumption with whatever we go out with as our proposals that those are our proposals, but obviously they are being consulted on, and we expect to get comments back, and I dare say there will be varying views over these, which may well actually have alternative proposals in them, and I suppose I'm just trying to work out what the best way is to go about it, because obviously we'll need to consider alternative suggestions when they come back as part of this consultation. So, yeah, that's probably not a very coherent question, but hopefully you sort of get what I'm getting at.
Yes, so as I understand it, Councillor Boffer, your point is that because this is the next stage in a consultation, and the consultative process will inevitably involve feedback precisely of the kind that Councillor Clark has helpfully given, that we can anticipate and consider responses of that kind, not only from councillors, but also from members of the wider community, and that can then form part of any later decision on the final form that a town council would take. Is that an accurate summary of what you were saying?
Broadly, yes, yes. Well, yes, in obviously if a change is proposed, then a change needs to be considered. But I just thought I'd elaborate on that to see whether that was something that was deemed necessary at this stage.
Okay, well, I've heard something framed as a suggestion rather than a proposal to make any amendment to the substantive matters before that. If obviously councillors feel differently, they can make that clear. Councillor Clark?
If I can come back on that, I mean, I wouldn't want to spring this like this and suggest it as a change right now. What I am saying is think about it, because don't be, what's the word?
Close. Tunnel vision.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's like horses have, you know, sort of don't have a blinkered view that there are other options, and certainly if you have a wider number, then you have a better mix of votes. So I'm not going to propose it as a thing, but I think we ought to consider it in the mix.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. That's very helpful indeed. In the spirit of that, Councillor Emery, did we have a further comment to make?
Actually, I was just going to say what Councillor Rockhoffy said. I spent quite a significant time last night trying to work out how you address the issue of Mill Pond, which happens to be in my ward, which does only have 888, and whether you could merge that with Horsham Park. And to be honest, I ended up just scratching my head. So I suggest that we proceed on this basis, and we'll see, and let's look at alternatives in the fullness of time. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Emery. So if no other councillor wishes to speak as a member of the committee, just yet, we do have in attendance Councillor Olsen, who is the chair of the unparished area, who I think would like to address the committee. So I invite him to speak now.
Thank you, Chair. You've given my roles, so I don't need to mention that, but I will also add that I was previously a neighbourhood councillor for the Forest neighbourhood. So I want to thank everyone at this committee as well, and for the officers for their time and the mental energy spent into developing these recommendations that will hopefully eventually fill the void in Horsham of the lack of a town council or parish having an unparished area. And of course, I think this is even more important as we've discussed in the rationale due to the upcoming LGR. I think these recommendations do outline a viable solution to establish clear functions for the town council. And I also note a lot of the language in there about communities and acknowledging the different identities and interests within the communities of the unparished area. And I think merging these three councils will, I agree, as in 3.27, increase cohesion across Horsham. But I also note the attempt by these recommendations to retain local representation through the warding arrangements. And I think, similar to some that has been said by Councillor Clark, I wanted to particularly take note of the makeup of the boundaries of wards and the electorate ratios, both being current and projected ratios. I do note paragraphs 3.15 and 3.16 are particularly important to the Forest neighbourhood, which is currently the largest electorate. It's always had a conundrum of being crisscrossed by both 3 district council wards and 3 county divisions, meaning quite often at Forest neighbourhood council meetings there can be more councillors from those 2 bodies than there can be from neighbourhood councils themselves. But I would also note that I think personally the county divisions are sometimes the most awkward boundaries in that area, and importantly, as of yet, no decision has been made on the makeup of any future unitary authority. So turning to several of the proposed parish wards, which cover my own district ward, I do have a few specific points and comments just to raise. First, it's worth acknowledging that the two largest proposed parish or town wards are in the forest area. There's discrepancies between the numbers already noted by Councillor Clark. But I also want to pay attention to or note Horsham District Council's Regulation 19 local plan and strategic policy HA10, Horsham housing allocations, identify HOR 01, the land at Hornbrook Farm. This is one of the only strategic policy allocations for development within Horsham Town, within the unparished area. Obviously, Highwood is still being built out, already approved. But that could significantly impact the size of the forest ward, being it's already the second largest by 19, were 100 homes to be added for it to be continue to be a single member ward. And then I'd also like to just highlight Chesworth Ward as proposed, which straddles both the Den and Forest district wards, which was acknowledged in the report. But I think they are two very distinct polling districts, distinct identities separated by the A281 Brighton Road. And the rationale for linking them isn't necessarily that strong in my opinion, though I could understand why it's maybe a requirement if you're not trying to break county divisions. And then as a much smaller point, I hope that in the consultation, the community might identify some other naming conventions. I think Ice Court is well be an important historical reference. I think most of the residents of that ward would struggle to understand why it's called that. So I've not spent as much time, probably as Councillor Clark, looking for alternatives. But I did want to ask this committee that they do so during the next consultation phase of potentially amending the current recommendations. I do acknowledge that these are drafts at this point, and expenditure of officer time to amend them before consultation would probably be not worth it, because there may be additional recommendations or changes that come out of the consultation. So basically, in short, sort of three questions to the committee officers is one, was the Hornbrook development factored into the current boundaries? And if not, could it be? Perhaps that needs to be consulted with strategic planning as well. And similar to Councillor Clark's point, was the number of 15 councillors sort of fixed in the committee's mind, or is there potential for that to be changed? And then finally, will this committee consider my comments as well as any coming out of the consultation when they review their final recommendations for the CGR? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Olsen. So before I go back to members to ask, I believe that one of those questions was directed specifically to the officer, and I wanted to give them the opportunity to reply, and then we can return.
Was the question directed to me about the Hornbrook development?
That's probably the one, yeah.
Yes. I did speak to strategic planning as a whole about the unparished area, and so usually what we look at is the 5-year electorate forecast. It wasn't factored in because it wasn't factored into their 5-year forecasting. I can go back to them and have a look at it, but from what I understand, there isn't a planning application in yet. Yeah.
Sorry, so I will grant discretion to Councillor Olsen to ask a follow-up question, I'm guessing.
There is just one point to that. It may not always get back to strategic planning, but residents of that of the location have been presented with letters from agents, so they may have other plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Olsen. That's useful information for the committee. Councillor Hogman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm obviously supportive of the recommendations as a whole. 46, was it 45 or 46% of people did share a concern about increase in costs. And I can see that the leaflet has perhaps tried to address these in that, you know, I'm reading the leaflet here, it says what would it cost, and it's got the average, the highest, the lowest, and it's got the special charge. I don't know if it's too late to amend that. I imagine a lot of time and thought has probably already gone into that paragraph. Now, I understand that the principle, perhaps more than most, that a new governance review, a new local government structure, a unitary council may well see an increase anyway. That doesn't come across in that paragraph. If I'm reading that paragraph, I'm reading, well, I'm best off staying as I am, aren't I? A special charge. It doesn't come across that it's going to change and it's likely to go up whatever happens. So it's just, I can see a lot of time and thought's gone into it, and I'm not sure how to word it better personally. But these people are liable to pay more anyway, and they're liable to pay more with a preset for a town charge anyway. And I did the maths on, you know, what's it, the £693 allowance, it works out at 30p extra person, just to see if it doesn't really change the figures much, even with an extra 6 characters. So it's a comment. These leaflets may be printed, but the second consultation going out by the 14th. So my feedback may be too late, and I can see we've tried. I'm just not 100% sure it's achieving what I think you're probably trying to achieve by it. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hogben. Did you wish to comment, Officer, on any of the points raised there at all?
I think it's quite challenging because this issue, I appreciate what you're saying. This issue is obviously completely separate and should be concluded well before LGR, and you know that any changes that happen as a result of LGR are separate to this change, and this will be an additional change, whether it's a big change or not. And I think that's such an unknown. It's kind of simpler when you lay it out to put it in isolation, because the precept is obviously a separate charge on the council tax bill. I think it's easier to just compare them directly with other equivalent charges. But I take your point, and other members of the committee might agree.
So I would invite members, if they had any further comments, to come in now, if you liked. Councillor Emery.
Thank you, Chairman. I concur with the comments made by the councillor around cost. I'd also highlight the fact that the two things people are concerned about is how much it's going to cost and what are they going to do. Ultimately, that's what this is about. And the difficulty we have is that we are consulting on a framework, and it will be for the council when it's first appointed to determine what services it's going to provide and at what cost. And that, I think, is going to be the challenge for us in this consultation, because what people want, sadly, is not something that at this stage we can provide. So I think we can do as well as we can in this consultation within those limitations. And in that respect, if I might suggest, can I refer you to page 168 on the pack, which is the actual consultation, the second phase consultation paper. There is a heading that you have a town council for Horsham Town Centre, you then have the map, and then you have the question, what would the town council be responsible for? Can I suggest in the 3x2 box that we move the facilities services that must be provided by the town council to the top rather than to the bottom? Because I think in terms of the question that's being asked, they need to know the very minimum that the council will provide, and then to see what it is they may be able to adopt. And can I suggest that as a small amendment, if it's not too late or too expensive? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emery. As I understand it, that would be something that would be achievable under the altered recommendation 5, which we all agreed to kind of go forward and vote on, that could fall under the delegated authority to the Democratic Services and Elections Manager, Isa, who's sat here with us.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I also actually think maybe if you did that, you'd just flip the whole table round so that it must be maybe run by either, and then ends with what couldn't be.
Thank you.
Councillor Boffin.
Thank you, Chairman. I sympathise with the point that Councillor Hogben's making, actually, about changes forthcoming and local government reorganisation. Being directly involved in some of those discussions, and we've only really just got to the point where we're talking about council tax harmonisation as a concept rather than actual proposals. It's pretty complicated stuff, and I think there's kind of what you know, there's what you don't know, and then there's what you think is incredibly likely, and then there's what's sort of fairly likely or feasible, whatever have you. And it's sometimes difficult knowing where the line falls on some of those. So, in terms of, is council tax likely to go up anyway? Well, one might think, well, we're in, it's the lowest D's and B's precepts. So when you're harmonising, it probably follows as quite as a very likely thing that's going to happen. But if there's anything I know about this process that we've been going through so far, it is somewhat unpredictable at times. So I'm kind of, I understand the point that's being made. I'm just kind of 50-50 on where to actually go in terms of a position that we're taking, and what impact that might have on other stakeholders' attitudes in discussions, shall we say. Probably leave it there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boffey. Do any other members have any further questions or comments they'd like to make at this stage? Excellent. Well, I think then the right thing to do would be to move to a vote on the recommendations, with recommendation 5 as altered. And so I should just read those out to you now. Oh, sorry, have I missed a moment here, Paul? We do actually need a proposer and a seconder for these motions. So does any councillor feel that they wish to propose the motion that we have before us this evening? Councillor Boffey, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Emery, thank you very much. Are you happy then to move that we move to?
Yes, I am happy to move to the vote. Thanks.
Okay, well, then we will now vote on the recommendations with recommendation 5 as altered. So that is, just to recap you, recommendation 1, to note the outcome of the initial consultation as contained in appendices 2, 3 and 4 to this report. Recommendation 2, to approve the draft recommendations for the community governance review as contained in appendix 1 of this report. 3, to approve that the draft recommendations be subject to a period of consultation from the 14th of August to the 29th of September 2025. 4, to approve in principle the consultation documents as contained in appendices 5 and 6 to this report. And finally, the altered 5, to delegate authority to the Democratic Services and Elections Manager to amend the consultation documents and draft recommendations as deemed appropriate to reflect any of the comments made by members of the Governance Committee or otherwise. Would anybody wish to have clarification again of those suggested amendments? Wonderful, in which case we shall proceed to a vote. All those in favour of approving the recommendations, please show. That's unanimous. The motion is carried. Item number 6, urgent business. There is no urgent business. Thank you so much for your attendance. I call this meeting to a close. I don't actually have the time. 6:03. 6:03. Thank you.